Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Plenty of juicy drama to dive into today after an article comes out that suggests that Velly was forced to retire by the CDL after an intoxicated incident. Many of the CDL pros have come out in defense of Velly and saying this really shouldn't have been as much of a big deal as it turned out to be. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. I really have said the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Thanks for 80k as well. Already said thanks, but we'll do it again anyway. Firstly though, we've got to talk about which teams qualified for the Challengers World Championship going on, I believe, alongside the main World Championship starting on the 7th of August. 4 teams qualified through the online stuff. People weren't happy about the points effectively they'd accrued this entire season. 4 more teams through more online qualifiers, 1 in each region. 1 in APAC, the Point Blank guys won that, so congratulations to these fellas. 1 in Latin America, 1 in North America, 1 in Europe. We shall see here, of course, in a second. Whoever lost all these matches last night, everything happened last night, their season is now over. Vanguard is over, so I suppose that's a celebration for them, but of course they don't get to go to the World Championship and try and go just one better. These are the guys that qualified from APAC, so congratulations. They'll be flying out there in a couple of weeks' time to the actual World Championship effectively. And that's the thing, we're going to discuss Clayster in a second. His World Championship streak hasn't continued technically on the pro side, but well, maybe it has in the Challenger side, I suppose. He will at least be attending the events to compete. We'll see that in a second. It's well, some of the Spanish guys that qualify here in the European LCQ, but not the Spanish guys that people might have expected at the start of the season. The Rokkr Academy, Real and co, they were looking pretty dominant. But the guys that qualified, Journey, Yako, Eric Boom and Super from AIM Esports, I believe owned by Americ Laporte. So yeah, pretty cool stuff actually. And well, they win that, they'll go to the Challengers World Championship. Now let's talk Latin America. These are the boys, another Sucre, different, well, I think there's a Sucre that's a Spanish player and also a Sucre that's a Latin American player, but D1 Gaming, they qualify. They were the team, I believe, that tried to move out to that. I think that's correct, isn't it? They tried to move out to the States and make it happen. I guess they get the permission to actually compete in this one and qualify regardless. But let's talk about North America then, right? Because of course we had a few big name teams there. Doug Santa-Martin's team, they got double rounded out of the tournament, right? His bracket here didn't last particularly long. They lose to GodoRx and Koto, lose out of the tournament. And again, they've made a decent run lately, but they were never really going to be the team probably that was going to qualify here. But yeah, Doug, his year is unfortunately over. It would have been nice to see him at Champs, but unfortunately the format didn't really work in their favour. But of course the team in general just wasn't quite good enough. We'll see how Boston Academy goes next year, whether Doug will still be on that squad with a different roster or the same roster. Who knows what they're going to do. Clayster did actually mention this though, that apparently some players were VPNing to secondary servers or to make sure they got different servers. Not exactly sure how this works, but that's the thing. Online COD for Champs quali, like yeah, it's kind of tough really when you're playing online Call of Duty to qualify for the World Championship. But I mean, yeah, VPNing, I guess the idea would be you VPN to a different server so that like you get on a different server to what the opponents would like. I don't know, maybe you can VPN to a location where it's going to give your team a beneficial server advantage or something. But apparently teams were doing that at the LCQ. As Clayster is not accusing anyone we plays, but just heard that's what teams are doing here in this LCQ. So keep an eye out for that one, I suppose. Effectively accusing that there might be some cheating going on here in the LCQ yesterday. But yeah, Clay and Co get the job done regardless. They reverse sweep John and his team in the end in the LCQ first round. 1-3-2, that's pretty big from Clay. Go down 2-0, reverse sweep them to, of course, stay alive in the winners bracket. They then play Royalty and Co, beat them as well. That was Royalty and Dave Paddy's team. Another game 5 win, just a bit too much, says Clay. And this is one of the key moments in that actually. This is when, again, Clayster's team are here, Team Exposed, as they're kind of being sponsored by Down 1-2. They were up in this Berlin hardpoint, and then Royalty gets stuck in the floor. Kind of crazy stuff. This is ProLoot's team as well with DiamondCon. He gets stuck in the floor here on Berlin. I've actually not seen this before, but you know, it's Call of Duty Vanguard, baby. ProLoot has to kill him to get him to respawn. Like, it's an absolute disaster, really. And honestly, like, if that situation hadn't gone down, they might have been able to break in here and beat Clayster's team. Clayster's team probably would have won anyway, but I mean, still, at a crucial moment in the game, Royalty gets stuck in the floor. That's just Vanguard stuff. And anyway, it just seemed like the gods were kind of on the side of Clayster, Prestinni, Venom, and Felony, as they then win this series in the 3-2 fashion in the end. Then they win the winners finals 3-1. They certainly warmed up and then take the grand finals as well. Even there was some talk though, the fact that like the veto advantage wasn't there because Clayster's team, coming from winners, should have had like a veto advantage in the grand finals. But yeah, it turns out that apparently it just was going to go to the higher seed, even though the higher seed was coming from the losers bracket, which I believe was GodoRx's and Fame's team. But actually it was good sportsmanship from those guys who said, okay, yeah, technically the rules are wrong. The classic stuff really, that say we should have the vetoes, but really it should be to the winners bracket team, which is Clayster's team, so they gave away the veto advantage, and therefore they did it as it really should have been done. Consummate professionals, appreciate it. They redid the vetoes, well, Clayster's guys have the advantage, and well, this is honestly, as soon as I saw this moment, I was like, yeah, it's GG's. Clayster's gonna win, because up 2-1 here in the grand finals, Clayster kills GodoRx and flies Veli's off the map in the process, right? We know that Clayster has, you know, a good relationship with Out of Bounds on certain Call of Duty maps, and instead of just killing Gunless normally, he decides to just do the ultra shell, kill him and fly off the map in the process. Clayster was feeling himself, and yeah, they end up winning the entire series and qualify for the World Championship. Incredible stuff, really. I wouldn't say they were quite the favourites for this tournament, but yeah, when the pressure's on, Clay and the guys turned up. Lots of experience on this team, of course, World Championship winning experience in Clayster and Prestinni. Fellow was there as well, and shout out to Venom also, because I think he was a player that was honestly underutilised really by Los Angeles Thieves. A good player, I think a solid player for LA Thieves. I hope he does get a spot back in the league at some point as well, because seemed like a great kid. Didn't really get his chance to shine, I think, on a pretty dysfunctional Thieves team that was making changes every other week. I still think Venom can be a good player. He wins the NALCQ. He's going to be there at the Chandler's World Championship as well, and Clayster's champ streak is maybe kind of still alive. No, not really, but you know, to a degree. The fact that he won this is pretty impressive. 8 teams, only 1 came out on top, and it was Clayster that got the job done. So these then are the 8 teams that will be at the World Championship. 4 teams that already qualified: Ultra Academy, both Ultra Academies, Team War and Iron Blood Gaming. That was the Exceed team, Mohawk Classic, and I think it was Brack maybe that basically put together a squad that's have enough points to qualify. And then of course the 4 teams we just looked at. So that will go along coinciding with the World Championship, I believe, in Los Angeles in a couple of weekends time. And shout out really, I mean, Venom dominated this entire tournament at 1.18 KD. Prestinni didn't have the greatest time at the respawns, but in control he was doing a good job. And then Clayster with a 1.08. So shout out aBeZy for putting these stats together and tracking these things throughout this tournament. And as Clay says, 1 spot left for champs. You know how we rock in. Still got that dog in him, all the type of good stuff. So yeah, GG's, everyone's season is over. That isn't the guys, of course, that qualify for the World Championship. And even as exposed says in, if next year's COD is good, I'm going to sponsor a squad next year for challenges, covering flights, hotels, headsets, controllers, dishing out a little monthly income. So that's pretty awesome to stuff. And as he does say that, it won't be Clayster, unfortunately, because he'll be in the league. So whether it's already guaranteed that Clay's going to be back in the league, or whether these are just presently rumours, or whether he's already kind of got offers there on the table that can take Clayster back to the league is another question, or whether Exposed just thinks that, yeah, Clay's for sure going to get back into the league, especially after this performance getting to the Challenger's World Championship, then, you know, more than likely Clay is going to get a spot somewhere or other, but a further indication that may well be the case. Let's talk about this Velly drama then, because this was really kicking off last night. I thought really when we saw this a couple of days ago that this was not going to be the last we heard of this, because there was just too much, like, it was too weird, it was too bizarre, the circumstances that Velly retired, for that to just be it, and we were never going to hear the story of actually what happened behind the scenes, especially because, like, there were pros in attendance there at Major 4. It seemed obvious that something must have happened at Major 4, just because why would he not be at the World Championship when he was planning to be just a couple of weeks before he resigned his position? Now, the question was, when COD League did this tweet, did they say to him, look, you've got to resign here, you've done something bad, or was it like he actually just dipped, maybe before they fired him? I don't really know, to try and save face. I'm not really sure exactly what was going on, but there were questions. What's Velly done? Why has he had to retire? He was pretty good, I think, in the role this season. Now, Deserto gives some insight last night. Was that Deserto say desk host Velly resigned from the CDL following an intoxicated altercation after the New York Major. So basically at the after party, something went down. A previous tweet incorrectly stated Velly was asked to leave following the incident. This was the original tweet here. Desk host Velly was asked to resign by the CDL following an intoxicated altercation. They then go on to clarify, because I guess maybe Velly or someone else reached out, that yeah, he was not asked to resign, he just resigned of his own volition. Now look, whether he would have been asked to resign if he didn't resign of his own volition is another question. Like whether he, you know, maybe decided to just resign himself before someone said something is obviously a question that might be had. But this is what was mentioned in the article, just to kind of break everything down. The altercation is said to have taken place while Velly was intoxicated during the post-event celebrations, prompting pro players and other members of the casting team to break up the situation. Velly is believed to have tendered his resignation after the altercation occurred. The other broadcast talent involved were not reprimanded. Unclear, of course, who will be on the desk for COD Chaps. Interesting stuff. I think we've seen a couple of times maybe Velly, like he's had a couple of pints or, you know, whatever he's drinking, gets on the flank or in the flank chat and go a bit rogue sometimes. Like I think we've seen that happen from time to time. But of course, this is another level, right? Deserto was saying that, wow, Velly's, you know, coming at people, he's trying to like assault people, have like a punch up at the after party. That at least is kind of the implication of this article, right? Saying that, a drunken altercation, he was forced to resign. Like, yeah, it sounds pretty bad. And maybe it was pretty bad, but other pros have different perspectives on the matter. And people were trying to figure out, and even there were rumors, like initially, and I kind of heard this at the time as well, the day it went down, that Bryce and Blaze were the 2 people involved. Like, I wouldn't really put it past Bryce to get it. I don't know much about Blaze, but I feel like Bryce could certainly be a guy to get involved in something like this. But even people were talking about that they felt that on stream sometimes there was some tension. I do actually remember this moment where Velly was kind of roasting them about, Bryce and Ton, about like the beans on toast type stuff. Maybe Bryce didn't take it so well. It seemed to be a little bit of drama there. I don't know really like what happens with talent behind the scenes, but it just seems like esports talent, broadcast talent, there's always some drama drama going on, man. It's actually crazy. And then people went on to find out that the only people that Velly doesn't follow from the broadcast talent is Bryce and Tom, which is pretty interesting, you gotta say. And also I did think that when Velly initially resigns, like there was barely any, like if any at all, any casting talent, broadcast talent in the replies, right? You would expect if Velly resigned of his own volition and he was just like, okay, yeah, I want to go and do a different gig, I'm gonna call it quits. You'd have thought that all the broadcast talent would be like, oh wow, we're gonna miss you, Velly, like best of luck with your next endeavors, all this type of stuff. But barely anyone said anything in the replies, which probably made you think at the time like something actually went on and happened here, right? But anyway, far from all the pros agree that this actually should have been how it happened. Like both Standy and Crimsix, who were there, went on to explain, and as Crim says, my witness statement, Temp says he's kind of ratting him out, but you know, this is what Crimsix had to say. 3 casters were involved, all intoxicated. So like he says 3 casters, does that mean is Blaze a caster, right? Probably not. But then again, Velly's not a caster, so I imagine he's just generally talking about broadcast talent here. All intoxicated was over an argument between friends that went south, but not heavily south. In fact, I'd assume that they're still cool with each other. Not once did I notice the 2 preparing to fight. A 3rd caster came in trying to mediate it, did not see anything physical between the 3 other than Velly being grabbed by his arms from caster 3, being told to calm down. Things between Velly and this caster escalated over a supposed shove that I didn't see. May have happened, may not have happened. From my perspective, their faces are at maximum 6 inches apart from each other. Caster 3 was doing a horrible job mediating, yelling at Velly to calm down, and he ended up getting the most pissed off out of everyone involved that night, threatening Velly on assault charges, ready to fight Velly over a shove. It was to the point where caster 3 was looking down at Velly. I then stepped in and defused the situation. Should have been defused, but you know, good enough from Crimsix. Like Crimsix, the hero, comes to the rescue. The fat man, he's coming in there, breaking up the crimes. Love to see it. We all went back to our hotels shortly after. Probably was the least intoxicated there that night, as I was on the F1 sim for 3 hours straight at the prior bar IMO. It was a drunken bar argument that everyone would have woken up thinking how ridiculously stupid it was, but apparently not. So he's thinking, look, wasn't really a big deal. We should just get over it and move on with our day. Even Standy came out and said the article was sad. I was there. It was a verbal argument between 3 people. What was the point of painting Velly as an evil villain? I think we all know how valuable he was to the desk and for the CDL at Velly, right? So it's just interesting stuff, really. Like, of course, their perspective, the players that were there seemed to think it wasn't really a big deal. Like, you know, they should have been able to move on from it, even as Phoenix says. 3 people got into it and it's done now. No need to paint him as a bad person, right? So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of what Velly says in the replies, but it's an interesting situation, right? What's going to happen? Should this have happened the way it did? Of course, look, we don't have the CCTV footage of what went on there behind the scenes, whether it really was Velly's fault, because Crimsix was kind of saying that actually Velly was just having a bit of an argument, and it was the 3rd caster that came in that was, you know, trying to make something happen. There was arguably maybe equally at fault for this incident, but turns out that it was Velly the one who obviously got reprimanded, the other casters did not, and then Velly's probably in a situation where he's thinking, well, you know, do I still have a working relationship with these guys? Is it better for me just to resign my role and go and do something else? Or is the CDL not happy about it and then they're going to get rid of me if I don't resign myself? Bit of a messy situation, right? Like, look, I think Velly's a solid guy, but if this really is as minor of a deal as a lot of these kind of pros that have talked about it are saying, then like it's kind of frustrating that this has happened the way it has, right? Maybe Velly just thought, you know, look, I can't really work with these guys again, I'm just going to call it a day. But you know, it's kind of sad really, because I think a lot of the pros are thinking they should have just, you know, woke up, moved on from it and said, okay, you know, whatever, let's just focus up and go again for the World Championship and make sure this doesn't happen again. Maybe it's more serious than they're saying, but those were the guys in attendance, and Crimsix said that Acerto really only had one side of the story when they did their initial piece. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button and tell us your YouTube gods it's a good video, and I was like you should see it as well, and help grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.